California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law last Thursday that is a direct and intentional assault on parental rights. Under Senate Bill 107, the state of California can remove children from the custody of their parents if the parents do not support a child's gender transition. Children will have access to puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and gender surgeries regardless of a parent's wishes, medical advice, or even the law of other states. They're enticing kids whose parents obviously will not support the mutilation of their bodies to leave their states and travel to California, where California will become a sanctuary city for these transgender procedures. Joining me now to discuss this is Jonathan Keller, president of the California Family Council. Jonathan, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Tony, always good to be with you and all the viewers.
Now, this is a multi-page bill. I think it's like 92 pages long, so that was a quick overview. Tell us more about this law and exactly what it does and why it is such a gross attack on parental rights.
Well, absolutely. First off, as you mentioned, Tony, this is from Governor Gavin Newsom, and it is an example of how he is not just going after children in the womb before they are born, but he's going after them in their high school and teenage years as well. Essentially saying that if you are struggling with gender dysphoria, California knows what's best. California knows better than your parents. They know better than the doctors in your state. And they're essentially inviting people to come here for the purposes of these irreversible medical procedures. I don't even really want to call them healthcare because they are violating really the first rule of the Hippocratic Oath, which is do no harm. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of wording in this bill, but really the key things to realize is that this was initially conceived in response to states like Florida and Texas, who were trying to protect children in their states. They were trying to push back and say that parents should not be able to commit irreversible medical mutilations, honestly, on their children. And yet California, specifically Senator Scott Wiener and Governor Gavin Newsom, are again saying, as long as a child can make it here to California, they will disregard the custody decisions of those other states, and they will allow those children to begin those transition procedures.
Now, I've already spoken to some state attorneys general, and this is not going to go unchallenged. But I want to hit one point on this that is it becomes so characteristic of the left, kind of this gaslighting. Governor Newsom framed this as a parental rights issue and actually in his signing letter saying, quote, parents know what's best for their kids and they should be able to make decisions around the health of their children without fear. We must take a stand for parental choice. That is precisely why I'm signing Senate Bill 107. How in the world can he say that when this is a direct attack on parental rights?
Well, Tony, you're absolutely right. I mean, gaslighting barely begins to describe it. He is absolutely lying flat out to parents, not just here in California, but to parents across the country. I mean, remember, this is the same governor, this is the same administration that kept schools closed for the better part of the last 2 years. Over the objections of parents, over the objections of families that knew they didn't need to be subject to these crazy COVID lockdowns. This is the same governor that is telling minors they can get abortions behind the backs of their parents. Parents don't only not have consent, they don't even have notification in the state of California. So it really is just maddening that he would use the language of parental rights and parental choice to try to, basically, being honest, further his campaign for president in 2024. I really think that's what this is about.
Well, I mean, he supports parental rights as long as the parents subscribe to his radical ideology. Then he's all for those parents. If they happen to disagree, then in his mind, they have no rights. This is being funded by taxpayers in the state of California. I mean, the cost of living in California is exorbitant.
That's
Do you think
absolutely
taxpayers actually support this idea?
You know, I really don't think they do. And the thing that's been fascinating, Tony, is that there's a lot of issues in California that I think people who live here, it's just one thing after the other. And sometimes people get so fed up, they just kind of shrug their shoulders and throw up their hands. But we've really seen people come out of the woodwork in opposition to this bill in particular, both nationally and in our own state. Because I do think that in all reality, parents do support parental rights here in California. Parents do think they know what's best for their own children. And I don't think any parent, even parents in California, want their tax dollars to be used to separate parents from their own children and to tell those parents, sorry, Gavin Newsom knows what's best for your child, not you who conceived and gave birth to your child, who have raised them into adolescence. I do think that a lot of parents are going to look at this and say this is a step too far, even for a crazy state like California.
I certainly hope you're right. But this I do know, Jonathan, this is not the end of this debate. You're going to see the first time you have a child go from a state like Oklahoma, Louisiana, Missouri, or one of these red states, there will be a lawsuit, I can assure you. Jonathan, thanks for the great work you guys do in California. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony. God bless.